Okay, so we will be recording this session. If anybody has any objections with the recording, please say so now. Okay, so we're going to continue with lab exercise 1, which had to do with the construction of our database. And remember that we're doing the database example of the SOSA Corp. Relational model. So we've got that. What had we done in last session? Well, we had created the structure for the tables for each of the, I'm just going to open them up here. The tables for each of the corresponding tables in the relational model. And we had created the 5 tables and we had provided the attributes for each of the tables. Remember that by default, whenever we open an object here in Access, a table and other stuff that we're going to be seeing further on, it's usually presented in a view. And that view is either the working view or the view that kind of gives us a preview as to how what we're doing is going to look. So for example, in the case of the tables, remember that it's going to open them by default in the data sheet view, which is this view that we have here. And, but we want to see them in the design view. And the design view is this view here where we have the different fields that we had defined, the data type and the descriptions. And we've got each of them here. Okay. Okay. We've got each of them here. Okay. Now I'm going to close all of them. I'm going to do a bit of some modifications because we're going to start using the database. So I'm going to do some modifications here for you guys to please take note. And maybe you're going to do those adjustments also when in the labs that you're working. So the first thing, I'm going to go to each table and remember that we had defined a primary key. And that primary key is what's called an auto. We had defined it with the data type that's an auto number. And the auto number basically is going to generate automatically a number. Each time it's going to start in 1. And each time we add a new record, it's going to add a consecutive 2, 3, 4, etc. That's practical as a default primary key because it allows us to create automatically different registries that automatically have consecutive numbers that aren't repeated. However, I want to be able to create numbers or I want to be able to create or fill in these numbers with a specific code. So I'm going to remove the auto number data type and I'm just going to leave them as a number data type. Okay. So I'm going to do that modification. I did this modification here. I'm going to close it. I'm going to do it for each table because I believe that in each table we had defined it as an auto number. And again, I'm just going to do that. If I leave it as an auto number, it's going to be generating a number from 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I want to fill in some data here for the examples we're going to be doing and for that to be congruent with the one I did last year. And so I want these to be numbers, okay, that I'm going to be able to define the code I'm going to be using or the type of structure there. So I'm going to modify each of these. And in each of these, I'm going to leave it as a number, okay? It's one of the things I'm going to be doing. I already modified the employee table. Yes, close it. Here in this one, this is the employee project that's automatically also already a number. And in the project table, so I'm going to leave all of them as numbers. Okay. Okay, so that's one of the first modifications I'm going to do. Now, one of the things that I need to create in the structure of the database is that part of the relational model are these connections that are done between the tables, okay? And these connections are done between the tables are defined according to the relationships that we have in the, for each of the tables and entities. So we need to create these. There's a few ways to do this. There's actually a couple of ways or more to do this, to do these connections in Access. I'm going to show you one of the ways to do it. That's quick and painless. And so what we're going to do is the following. I'm going to go back here to the Access database. And I'm going to go to the, for example, I'm going to go to the employee table. I'm going to go to the design view. And so can somebody tell me which of these fields are related to other tables? Which of the fields that I've got here in this employee table are related to other tables? Give me one.
Department ID.
Correct, Giselle, the department ID. The department ID is one. The employee social security number, that's a weird one because it's not really related to another table. It's related to the same table. But we have to also link that. And so what I'm going to do is the following. Here in department ID, and by the way, we do this once we've defined all of the tables. I'm doing this at the end because first we need to define all the tables before we do any linking. I recommend you do that. Don't create a table, then link it. First, we're going to create all of the tables and we're going to do the linking for the relationships in the end. And how are we going to do that? There's a few ways to do that. I'm going to show you one of them. So I'm going to go here to this field, department ID. And remember, if I'm going too fast or you need me to stop or ask a question or go back, then please let me know. I'm going to go here to department ID. And I'm going to go here to the data type. Remember that there was an option here that was the lookup wizard. Right now I have it defined as a number, but I'm going to go over here to the lookup wizard. And the lookup wizard gave me two options. Remember that we had already used one of these options, which is to define the values that I want for that field. And we did that for the gender, and we did that for the manager yes, no. But now we're going to do another option. And this option says, I want the lookup field to get the values from another table or query. So what I'm saying basically is this, the department ID in the employee table, I want that information to come from another table that I've already defined. Remember that this is important. This is why our tables are linked. So I don't want to fill in here in the employee table. I don't want to fill in values here in department ID that aren't congruent with values that I've got in the department table, or else I'm going to have a mess and I'm going to have anomalies. Remember that we want to prevent anomalies as much as possible. So I want the lookup field, or I want department ID to get its information from another table. I'm going to click next. Which table or query? Right now we don't have any queries. Remember that a query is an extraction, a question that we're going to do to extract information. That's actually lab 3. Which table should provide the values for this lookup field? Well, it's going to be the department table. Okay. It's asking me if I want to view tables, queries, or both. I don't have any queries right now. So I'm going to select the department table. Which field in the department table is this field from employee going to be linked to? Well, I want it to be linked to department ID. It can be more than one, by the way, if I wanted to. It's going to be department ID. Then I'm going to click next. This is just if I want to sort it, the information, if I want if I've got a list box, because it's going to present it as a list box. It's just giving me an option here. If I want to do a certain order, I can say that I want department ID ascending or not. I can leave it like that or leave none. The only thing that I'm saying there is that when I get the options from department ID, if it's going to order them or not, I'm going to leave it as it is. This is just how it's going to look. Right now, I don't have any information. I don't have any data. That's why it's blank. And I'm going to click next. What is the label I would like for the lookup field? I'm going to leave the same label there. Okay. And I'm going to click finish. Okay. The table must be saved before relationships can be created. Do I want to save it now? I'm going to click yes. Okay. And I've just done that link. I'm going to do that for all of the relationships that I have. And then I'm going to show you a pretty interesting diagram that's being generated. Then employee social security number, I'm also going to go to the lookup wizard. I want the lookup field to get the values from another table. And in this case, it's going to be from the same table, employee. It's going to be the employee social security number. I'm going to leave that as it is. And I'm going to leave the same, name. So I just did that link. The table must be saved before relationships can be created. I'm going to save it. So I think I'm done with the links from the employee table. I'm going to close everything. Now I'm going to go, which other tables have connections that I need to make? Can somebody tell me? Which other table do I need to link up also?
Table project.
Project, correct. Thank you, Estrella. Let's go to the project table. I'm going to go to the project table and we go to the design view. And I've also got the department ID here. So I'm going to go here, lookup wizard. I want the lookup field to get the values from another table. I want those to come from the department table, the department ID. And this is how it's going to look. And I'm going to finish it up. The table must be saved. I'm going to save it. Okay, I've got that one. Good. Which other table? So just as a reference, I've already done I've already done these. I've already done these. Which others do I also need to link up?
Department and dependent.
The department table and the dependent table. And let's go to the department table first. I'm going to go to the department table. I'm going to open it in design view. And I've got the manager social security number. Remember that the department is managed by someone and that is that person is an employee. So I'm going to go to the lookup wizard. I want to get the fields from the employee, social security number. Click next, and finish. Table must be saved. I'm going to save it there. Close all. Then we've also got the dependent. Okay, so right now we've done these, we've done this one, we've done this one. Now we're going to do this one here. The dependent has a link to an employee. So the employee, we're going to go to the lookup wizard, look up the field from employee, employee social security number. Next, and finish up. Okay, we save the table. Close all. Okay. And lastly, the employee project table. Okay. And here we've got a couple of the social security number and the project ID. So I'm going to add the lookup wizard. I want to get the values from that one. I'm going to get it from employee, the social security number. And next, and finish. I'm going to save the table, and the project ID I'm going to get from the project table. Project table, project ID, next, and finish. Table must be saved. And I think that's all of them, right? I think that's all of them. I had already done the project. Yep, I think that's all of them. Okay. Now, again, what we did there is that we've linked up we've linked up the tables. Now I can go now to database tools. Here in database tools, and notice that I've got a button here that says relationships. So let's see what happens there when I click relationships. So if I click relationships, ta-da, I've automatically it set up the relationships. Now, remember when we were doing the relational diagrams that I told you to not worry that much about the crossing lines for those of you who are really OCD? Well, this is how Access is doing. So I'm just going to order these how we have them here. So I'm going to first put the employee table up here. Then I'm going to put the department table up here. Then I'm going to put the project table over here. I'm going to put the dependent table over here and the project table over here. And there's one more table. You notice that there's an employee one table that's been added. That's because remember that we've got a relationship here. Then this is just the way Access is doing it. Since there's a relationship that has to do with the same table, which is the employee social security number, Access is just creating this new table just because that table is referenced with regards to itself. Okay. So this is an example of the relational model that we're going to have here in the an example of the relational model. Kind of looks like what we have here. Okay, and that is established by doing those links. Okay. One thing that's very important when we're working with these sorts of softwares and projects and these integrated development environments, it's very important. Once we establish the relationships, you have to be very careful with deleting or removing attributes that are linked because we're going to get a mess and a real problem is generated. So we try to do this at the end, this relationship. And whenever we modify an attribute that has to do with a relationship, we usually have to first remove the relationship or remove the link and then do the modification. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Okay, and now basically we've got our database. We've got our database mostly mostly done, mostly ready. Okay. Just give me, okay. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to fill in some information just so we have some information there. Okay. Before we start filling in some information, there's another thing we're going to do here. So I'm going to go back here to database tools and the relationships, and notice that we've got the links there. We're gonna do something here where we're going to select each of the. We could have done this, by the way, in when we did the links, because there's an option there to do it. But we can do it here also. I'm going to click any one of the links, for example, this one, and there's an option here that says. I'm sorry. There's an option here that says enforce referential integrity. That only means that I'm not just creating the link, I'm asking also Access to validate that the information or the data I'm going to be providing has referential integrity, meaning that as much as possible to try to prevent, while I'm working with the database, any sort of anomaly that could have to do with insertion, deletion, or anything. This has to do with the relationship. So I'm going to click that. And notice that when I do that, automatically the type of relationship is defined or established. Okay, so I'm going to do that for each of the links. By the way, what we did with the wizard, where we created these links, we could have also done that by using this diagram. So we could actually have also created this We could also have created this diagram by going to the relationships canvas and just putting all the tables there and connecting them manually. That's another way of doing it. And so I'm just going to click here, the referential integrity, just so all of the links have the referential integrity, and automatically a certain cardinality is defined there. I'm going to close this. I'm going to save the changes. Okay. Now what we're going to do lastly for this section is that I'm just going to fill in some information here. So just so we have some information to work with. So I'm first going to go here to department, and I'm going to create a few departments. I'm going to say department 10 is going to be called school. Oops. Let me just do that again. Okay, it's going to be department 10. I'm going to call it School of Engineering. I'm just going to fill in some data here, just so we have some data. College of Engineering Center. I'm just going to call it SAFE. Okay, I'm going to just create 3 departments. Right now, I'm not putting anything here. Notice that in department manager social security number, it's blank. Why is it blank? Before I did the relationships, this would not have been blank. It would have allowed me to put something. Why is it blank right now? Can somebody tell me?
So you can add your social security number?
No, but what does that field mean, Estrella? Department manager social security number, it means the social security number of the employee that manages this department. But right now, notice that here I can write something, but here I've got a drop-down box that doesn't have anything. Why is this drop-down box empty?
Because you haven't filled it on the other table.
Correct, Carmina, because right now I don't have any employees filled in. And since I did the link, this field should be gotten from the information of the employee table. And right now I don't have any information there. Okay, I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna close it. I am going to go to the employee table. I'm gonna add some employees here. I'm gonna add some employees. And I'm just gonna create some imaginary numbers. So I'm gonna say 1001. It's gonna be, I'm just gonna add a few of them here. This is gonna be me, Jorge Sosa Lopez. My address is gonna be 666 Inferno Avenue. My salary, I'm gonna say my salary is 10,000. Gender, male. My birth date is gonna be February 22nd, and it's gonna be 1975. Okay, I'm gonna say that I'm not a manager, so there's no start date. Department ID, notice here what's gonna happen. In department ID, what just happened in department ID? Remember that I did the link with the department table. So since I filled in the department table and the department table has options 10, 20, or 30, now those are gonna be here as options. So I'm gonna say I'm a part of department 10, okay? And I'm gonna leave the supervisor blank, okay? I'm gonna add somebody else, just gonna add a few. I'm gonna add Carlos Solorio. He is in 777 Angel Drive. His salary is going to be much larger than mine. He is male. I don't know his birth date. I'm going to say he was born yesterday. He is a manager. His start date, I'm going to say that it was January, which is actually true. January 1st, 2020. He is part of the School of Engineering. And I'm going to say that, and he doesn't have a supervisor, but I'm actually going to say that he is my supervisor. So I'm going to say that employee social security number 2, he is my supervisor. Okay. Help me out here. I'm going to fill in here the information of your professors this semester. So let's see, Mario Ramos. Okay. He's going to be 888 Cool Street, because you guys say that he's cool. I'm going to give him a salary of 20,000. He's going to be male. I'm going to say that he was also born yesterday, just as a reference. He is not a manager. His department ID is also 10. And his manager is also going to be Carlos Solorio. Okay. Who else? Who else could I add? I'm going to add, has Dr. Terrazas hasn't been your professor, right? So I'm going to say Juan Manuel Terrazas. He's going to be in 444 King Street. So it's Street Avenue, King Place. Okay, he's going to be the head honcho, so he's going to make a lot of money. Male. I'm going to say he was also born yesterday. He is a manager, and let's say that he started off this year, actually. Okay. His department, he's part of the College of Engineering. Okay. He doesn't have a manager, but I'm going to say that he is, wait, let me say this. I'm going to say that Dr. Solorio, that he is, let me save that. Okay. Oh, this is curious. Why isn't it not appear? Someone say 1,004 there. Okay. Okay. So I think that's I don't like it that we just have males here. This isn't right. I'm gonna add a few more. I'm gonna say 1,005. Let's see, who do we want to be? I'm gonna say Carmina. Carmina, remind me, your last name is Arvizu?
Yes, Arvizu Mesa.
And you're gonna be in 222 Queen Palace. And you're gonna be the one who earns the most. You're gonna be earning a lot, Carmina. You're gonna be earning a lot. What's your birth date, Carmina?
August 3rd, 2001.
August 2001. Wow, I am so old. 2001. Okay, I'm gonna say that you're a manager. You started off yesterday, and you're associated to SAIB, and you're actually in charge of our Center for Innovation and Design. And you are going to report. Oh, that's odd. I don't know why the rest of the information isn't appearing. It's a bit odd. Okay. I think that's. Let's add somebody else. Carmina. Let's see who else we can add. Iskra. 2006. Iskra. Remind me your last name. Is Iskra Julieta? Iskra?
Valenzuela Vizcarra.
Valenzuela Vizcarra. And she's going to be also in 222 Queen Palace. She's also going to be making a lot of money. Oops. Making a lot of money. What's your birth date, Iskra?
April 1st,
April 1st. Okay. April 1st, what year?
2002.
2002. Wow. We're going to say that you're also a manager. So you also started yesterday. You're also going to be associated to SAIB. That's where the money is. And you report. Okay. So that's going to be our That's going to be our employee table, just to fill in some stuff there. I'm going to close this. I'm going to add some people here in the dependent table. I'm just going to add a dependent. I'm going to add a couple of dependent name. I'm going to add my daughter. Email. It's the child and it's associated to which one was I? 1001, right?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm going to say 102. Let's say that little Jorge Damian. Isn't that a cool name? Little Jorge Damian that should arrive in September. He's also going to be associated to me. And let's say, I don't know, 103. I'm going to add Berta. I think it is. She's going to be female. She's going to be the spouse of Dr. Solorio. Okay. It's going to be that. I'm just going to have three dependents right now. Close all that. Project. Let's add a few projects. I'm going to call this project 10,100. Project name, I'm going to call this COVID-19 vaccine registration. Okay, and that's going to be associated. I'm going to say that that's going to be associated to Said. I'm going to say the project 2200. This is going to be the we call this the Industrial Engineering Global Program celebration campus visit. Okay. And let's say that that's going to be associated to department. Which one was the School of Engineering? It was department 10. Okay. And let's say that 3300. This is going to be the let's say that this is a calendar program. This is going to be associated to the college. Okay, let me change these actually. I'm going to say that this is 3100. This is going to be 10200, and this is going to be 2200. I'm just adding some projects there. And lastly, I'm going to add some information here in employee project. So the project ID for the first project, let's say that Carmina is associated with this, and she's going to be working 40 hours on that project. Okay. And then let's say that this project here, it's going to be Iskra. It's going to be 40 hours, but also I'm going to be working on that project. Okay, and I'm going to be working 20 hours. And on the third project, let's say that everybody's going to be working on that project, and everybody's going to be working the same amount of hours on that project. Okay, just to fill in some information here. Oh, 100 hours, that's too much. So we have some, notice that if I didn't put a valid value, it's going to call me on that. I'm going to just put everybody on that last project. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Is what I'm doing right now practical? You notice that I'm filling in all of the information and I'm filling it in like an Excel worksheet. Is this practical? The answer is no. Is it practical?
Not really.
Not really, because I'm doing it one by one. It's really not practical. So that's where lab exercise 2 comes in. It would be much more practical if I could have a form that I could be filling out, and I would just click form, click fill in, and the form would even be maybe practical for me to use. That would be much more easier if we could have. Go ahead, Yesel.
Can you use, for example, an Excel document that has a record of students or something like that and import that to Access?
Yes, actually, Yesel, that's a very good question. Yes, So for example, we might be creating a database where we already have some information that we've saved in Excel. And you can actually do that, Giselle. And what I'm actually going to do is the following, going to your question. I'm going to upload a video in Blackboard in the 2020 section of lab exercises, because last year we actually did one more lab exercise, which was exactly that, Giselle, where we imported data from Excel. We're not going to be doing it this semester. It's kind of like an extra lab exercise, but where we do that. And actually here, Giselle, if you go here to external data, you can import or export from Excel. You can take a spreadsheet from Excel that kind of has the same structure, or select which columns or rows you want, and you can import it. And you can actually export also information to Excel, to a PDF file, to email. You can do that also. It does allow it, okay? But the other way to do it is to be able to have some sort of interface where the user can provide information. And that's done through forms. And that's going to be our next, next lab exercise.